Talk Boxing News.
I've said all the offers are going to come in, or what it can be made available to me, and then I'll decide. But they're saying, we give this, huge offer. It might be a huge offer to Terry and a huge offer from Matchroom, but compared to the other offers that are on the table right now, it's not huge.
Yeah, Terry Harper's not mentioned there. What's your
listen, I think that was a great fight. It was behind the garden. It was voted Fight of the Year, and it was very good. But there was an opportunity to make that fight back then, and they just went a little bit silly about it. And I just think there's been too much damage done by that side of the party in the past with Natasha, and how they dealt with Natasha and how they treated Natasha for that fight to ever happen again.
Natasha Jonas, Unified Ring Magazine and Lineal Junior Middleweight Champion. She's in the driver's seat, and she's letting it be known. Comes as no surprise to me that there's not going to be a Harper rematch. In spite of it being for the undisputed Junior Middleweight Championship, it ain't happening.
She's open to a lot of different fights.
Some involving other Matchroom fighters, but when it comes to Terry, it's not going down.
It's not going to happen.
There are so many moving parts when it comes to this conversation, because we're essentially talking about fighters anywhere from 140 to 154 pounds, as high as 160, because Natasha Jonas is entertaining the possibility of a Claressa Shields showdown.
We'll get to that.
What could Steffi Bull have said over a year ago? What could Steffi have done that has made Natasha Jonas feel this way about a second fight, about a rematch? There's certainly an audience for it. There's certainly a demand, and it would be for all the belts. What could have happened between the teams?
What specifically? Because there's a lot of money to be made for both fighters.
It's gotten to a point to where Natasha Jonas is more receptive to a Claressa Shields fight than a Terry Harper fight. And a Claressa Shields fight is a much riskier, much more dangerous, much more difficult fight than fighting Terry for a second time. There are people out there that actually feel Natasha beat Terry unofficially.
Just saying, a Harper rematch is a more winnable fight than a Claressa Shields fight, and yet Natasha's receptive to Claressa and not Terry.
This is personal, and this isn't a Jonas Gallagher versus Matchroom thing. They're open to making other fights with other Matchroom fighters. Just not that one.
Claressa Shields got wind of Natasha Jonas's comments.
Natasha's interest in potentially facing her, and to that, Claressa said, it always looks easier than what it really is. But Natasha Jonas, if you think you can beat me, or that I lack skill-wise somewhere, prove it. Let's fight. By the way, I think you are a better boxer than Savannah, skill-wise, at least.
But she doesn't have Savannah's size, or Savannah's punching power. Physicality has a role to play.
I think Natasha Jonas is one of the best boxers in the world. That goes without saying, but size matters, believe you me.
In Natasha Jonas's last fight, unlike her previous fight, or the fight before that, the Patricia Bergoult fight, the Chris Namas fight, in her last fight, the Marie-Eve Dicaire fight, I think she felt.
This was a more aggressive, physically imposing Marie-Eve Dicaire than I'd seen in the past. She was very much imposing her will, or trying to, on Natasha Jonas. It was Natasha's boxing that got her through that. But you did notice that Natasha was struggling a bit in the clinch.
You notice that Marie-Eve Dicaire, who's not really known for power, she's not a big puncher.
It just seemed like Marie was getting to Natasha Jonas a bit, wearing on her physically, at least. Marie's size
just looked like Natasha Jonas felt it. She'd feel Claressa Shields' size even more. Claressa's bigger than Marie.
Faster than Marie, more accurate, more of a combination puncher than Marie. I hate to say this because I'm a big fan of Natasha Jonas, more so than I'm a fan of Claressa Shields, but being honest with you, I think Claressa stops Natasha.
The biggest drawback Natasha Jonas has campaigning in the junior middleweight division is that she's not a natural junior middleweight. She's not going to have the same durability as...
She's athletic enough and fast enough to out-hustle most other junior middleweights, and due to her background, her pedigree,
she's a better boxer than most other junior middleweights, but against Claressa, everything would be working against her. Claressa's bigger, younger, faster, more durable, stronger. Claressa's yet another fighter who's not known for being a knockout artist, far from it, but against Natasha Jonas, who's been stopped before by a much smaller woman than Claressa Shields.
If they're courting the idea of fighting Claressa Shields, they're courting disaster. I'm sorry to say, as much as I like Natasha Jonas, she doesn't win that fight.
No chance.
I don't know if there's an offer on the table from Boxer for Natasha Jonas to take on Claressa Shields, an offer that perhaps dwarfs
whatever Matchroom offered her to fight Terry for a second time. I mean, maybe that's what's going on behind the scenes. Maybe that's what it is, and maybe that's why she's open to that idea. More money. I'm just telling you. I'm saying it here and now. Her chances of victory are slim to nil.
She fights Clarissa. She must want to cash out and retire.
Natasha doesn't look it. Woman is gorgeous, but she's getting up there in age, even if she doesn't look it.
Maybe the money for a Shields fight would be enough for her to retire on and continue her work as an analyst, as a pundit.
I mean, that's the only way I can interpret this. If Natasha makes a decision to fight Clarissa, she must be cashing out.
It's a very risky fight. The only fight as risky as that fight is the Mary Spencer fight, with the difference being that she'd likely make more money fighting Clarissa than defending her titles against Mary.
I don't know. We'll see if this fight materializes. Men's super lightweight news. The Matthias versus Ponce situation seems to have reached some reconciliation. TGB Promotions, that's Tom Brown, which is just another way of saying Al Heyman.
Right.
He placed the winning bid of a little over $500,000 for the rights to the fight.
All right.
A promoter and a firm deadline are in place for an often delayed vacant title fight. BoxingScene.com has learned that TGB Promotions has secured the rights to the Subriel Matias versus Jeremias Ponce vacant IBF junior welterweight title fight. TGB bid $500,000 as the lone participant during the IBF purse bid hearing on Tuesday at the sanctioning body's headquarters in Springfield, New Jersey. Each boxer will earn $255,000 per a 50-50 purse split as the top two contenders. Per terms of the purse bid, TGB was required to submit a 10% deposit of the winning bid, $51,000, at the time of the session.
Talking about last Tuesday.
I think that's when all of this went down. So TGB Promotions was the only bidder for this fight, the only bidder for the show.
It's a really good fight if you're familiar with the fighters.
Though most people aren't, so nobody else wanted it. Nobody else wanted the rights to this fight.
The most important deadline is the 90-day window in which the fight must take place.
They put a firm deadline on this thing because it's taken long enough to get things sorted and try and get this fight over the line. The IBF were very Johnny on the spot with then IBF champion Josh Taylor. They were very quick.
I talked about this before, how seems like PBC fighters get preferential treatment with the IBF. They don't bother them as much as they bother other fighters that are with other outfits, Josh Taylor among them.
Consider that Bakram Murtazaliev at 154 pounds, he's been the IBF's mandatory challenger since 2019, and you don't see the IBF putting the squeeze on Jermel Charlo the way they put the squeeze on Josh Taylor.
Both fighters only fought once this year, but one guy ended up vacating his belt, one guy didn't have to.
The executed contracts for this bout must be submitted to this office within 15 days of the bid or by Wednesday, November 30th, 2022. The IBF noted the TGB in an official letter, a copy of which was obtained by BoxingScene.com. The fight must take place within 90 days of the bid or by Monday, February 13th, 2022. Matias versus Ponce is expected to land on a Premier Boxing Champions PBC show within that time frame, as PBC and TGB are in the process of finalizing its 2023 first quarter schedule. The winner will claim a belt that has been vacant since August 23rd, when Josh Taylor relinquished to instead focus on a rematch with England's Kat Jadderall, which was since pushed back to February.
PBC seemed to have a whole lot of stuff in the works for the first quarter of next year.
Likely when Showtime's annual budget will be replenished and roll around so they can start doing shows again.
And you will notice they ain't got a whole lot going on right now towards the tail end of this year.
There's lots of fights going down. There's lots of different fights coming up. Fights by way of BT Sport, fights by way of DAZN, some fights by way of Top Rank. But when it comes to the PBC, the well is running dry. The pairing of Matthias and Ponce initially began as the final leg of a four-man box-off ordered in 2021.
Jesus Christ, that's how long this has been drug out.
Jeremiah Ponce and Matthias both advanced to the top two positions in the IBF Junior Welterweight rankings following knockout wins in separate semi-final eliminators late last spring. Matthias became the number 2 position following an 8th-round stoppage of a guy whose name I can't pronounce.
At least you tried.
Except they didn't. That was last year in May in Carson, California.
Ponce followed suit 2 weeks later with a 10th round stoppage of Lewis Ritson last June in Newcastle, England.
All right.
The belief at the time was that a final eliminator would next take place, though both teams were able to reach an agreement amongst each other and with the IBF's blessing to wait out Taylor's then scheduled WBO mandatory with Kat Jadderall. Scotland's Taylor had just fully unified the division at the time, defending his WBA and IBF titles while winning the WBC and WBO belts in a 12-round unanimous decision win over Jose Ramirez, then unified champion, in their May 22nd undisputed clash between undefeated and unified titleists.
Tosh Taylor suffered a training camp injury which pushed back his fight with Kat Jadderall from last December 18th to this past February 26th, furthering speculation that he would eventually vacate the IBF title. Taylor barely escaped with his unbeaten record and championship reign intact.
Jeremias Ponce and Subriel Matias, the two, were previously instructed to enter talks for an approved interim title fight, which lingered for months. It was believed that a deal was reached, but merely waiting for a date, only for the IBF to never receive such paperwork and thus moved forward in ordering a Taylor versus Ponce mandatory title fight in July. Those talks went nowhere, with a purse bid scheduled for August 23rd, but canceled 1 day prior, fueling speculation that Taylor would vacate the title. Similarly, a fight has yet to come of what amounts to 10 weeks worth of talks and planning, despite suggestions that the bout was merely stuck in a holding pattern.
You know what I think? I think they both made the decision to hold off on doing their fight.
Because what they figured is, if they drag this out, Josh might end up vacating the red belt, at which point they won't just be fighting for an interim title,
They'll be fighting for the full one.
and that's more or less what happened. Matthias versus Ponce, once teased to be on course to take place on an October 15th Fox Sports pay-per-view undercard from the Barclays Center in Brooklyn, New York. Matias' team was led to believe this was the case, with the Puerto Rican knockout artist even revealing earlier this fall that the fight date fell through due to Argentina's Ponce's inability to secure a travel visa in time to appear on the card. Such a development was never fully confirmed by the IBF, who took matters into its own hands. The New Jersey-based sanctioning body announced on November 1st its plans to hold a November 15th purse bid hearing without exception, given the number of delays already experienced in getting this fight over the line.
And now it should be going down at some point next year in the first quarter.
At some point in January, I'd say.
So for the amount of time it's taken to get things sorted between these two boys, you might as well have let Josh Taylor keep his red belt.
Tosh Taylor, who's set to return to action to face Kat Jadderall for the second time early next year. Teofimo Lopez set to face him afterwards if Josh beats him.
Lopez beats Martin.
Lopez Sr., Teofimo's dad, says, "I predict my son will be a two-time undisputed champion by 2024.
Not likely.
We definitely want that Josh Taylor fight right after the Martin fight," said Lopez Sr. during an interview with AB News. "We're not overlooking Martin. We got to get through him first." Taylor, despite relinquishing the majority of his alphabet titles, is widely considered by many as the division's top dog. However, following his highly controversial victory over Kat Jadderall, the 31-year-old Brit left no stone unturned in his attempt to lure his foe back into the ring. After months of back-and-forth negotiations that were littered with mandatory title defenses, Taylor voluntarily vacated most of his titles, leaving him with just the WBO crown.
Not just. I still think Josh Taylor has the Ring Magazine belt and, of course, lineal status.
Josh Taylor, Teofimo Lopez. These are more recognizable names and recognizable fighters than, say, Jeremias Ponce or Subriel Matias. More recognizable than little-known WBA champion, newly crowned Alberto Puello.
And fight by fight, I'd wager that Josh Taylor and Teofimo Lopez, they get paid bigger prices than either Jeremias Ponce or Subriel Matias, Alberto Puello.
We're coming out here to become undisputed back-to-back. So who the hell we got to get through to get that? We're going to make it happen. I predict my son will be a two-time undisputed champion before the year 2024, if not 2024. He'll be a two-time undisputed champion.
No, he won't, because he wasn't undisputed the first time. He was the unified Ring Magazine and lineal champion, but he was never undisputed because he never fought Devin Haney.
As luck and the cosmos, Kismet, would have it, Devin Haney is in fact the lightweight division's undisputed champion. Without dispute, he is in possession of all the belts. He is that division's Ring Magazine and lineal champion.
Is that karma at work?
Well, for a long time, Teofimo Lopez was calling Devin Haney an email champion, got an email belt through no fault of his own. It's not Devin Haney's fault, or it wasn't. That top-ranked petition for franchise status for then-champion Vasyl Lomachenko. It wasn't Devin's fault that they did that, but Teofimo Lopez took it upon himself to call Devin Haney little more than just an email champion.
Now Teofimo isn't a champion of any kind, and Devin is his division's reigning undisputed champion.
Listen, Teofimo Lopez wasn't an undisputed champion as a lightweight, and I don't think he's going to be an undisputed champion as a super lightweight, though it's not based on ability, his abilities as a fighter, it's politics.
State of the weight class.
The way things are now, 2 of the 4 alphabet titles are over there stranded on PBC Island. The IBF title, the vacant IBF title, has been in limbo for months. We just talked about that. And newly crowned WBA champion Alberto Puello, I don't think the PBC are going to make him available to Teofimo Lopez or any top-ranked fighter.
They're not.
The saving grace for Teofimo Lopez, if he makes it past Sandor Martin later on this year, is he will be in line for the winner of Taylor versus Catterall 2, a fight that has more of a profile than Ponce versus Matthias or anything that Puello is doing.
You know, maybe Teofimo can become a unified champion if he has that fight with the winner of that fight and wins it, and then maybe sees about fighting the winner of this weekend's fight between Jose Zapata and Regis Prograis.
Today's super lightweight division is more political than it used to be.
That's why Teofimo won't be a quote-unquote two-time undisputed champion. Not that he was ever undisputed, because he wasn't. Better still,
He can still fight for titles. He can still fight in important fights with a profile. He can do that. He can make money. But as far as undisputed, you can forget about it. We're not going to see an undisputed champion at super lightweight for some years.
it's a reality.
He's got to get through the Sandor Martin fight first. A late replacement, a short notice opponent, a southpaw, the same way that Josh Taylor and Jack Catterall are southpaws. This is almost a rehearsal for those potential matchups.
Good preparation.
He's got to beat that guy first before any of this actually becomes a conversation.
That's it.